Deborah, with her 30 years of being an entrepreneur and creating over 7 companies, knows exactly what it means to accept the mission. When you make that decision, when you accept the mission to become a solopreneur, to take yourself and your talents to market, then you embrace a life of not only unlimited possibilities, but also the unknown. It's an elixir of fear and bravery that only someone who's taken the leap really understands. On our show, Deb digs deep with her guests to highlight what you, the listener, wants to know. The stories, the whys, and the hows to navigate the journey to success. Get ready to hear from some of the most incredible mission takers from Generation Z to Boomers. So sit up, perk up, and get ready to be blown away. Now here is your host, Deborah Drummond.
Welcome to Mission Accepted today. We are excited, and I know so are you, because a lot of you have watched my guest in our previous episode. She is an expert in being successful in all the right ways. And we're so happy to invite back Kathleen Carlson. And last time I told you guys that you are the most intuitive, not only the best podcast audience, but also intuitive. But you know what? You seem to have a lot of clarity around who's a good podcast show. I think you're really clear. on that because you keep coming back for more and more and more. And after this episode, you're going to be even more clear, because that's what we're going to talk about getting clear in your life. If you don't know or haven't heard Kathleen share her story of how she was a very successful and is still a very successful woman, but she played in the corporate world, and how eventually those little voices, her body was talking, and it finally took her to a place where she could no longer deny that she needed to make some changes in her life. And I think we can all relate to that, whether we're running out there and doing whatever we're doing, we're working, we're parenting, we're volunteering. When our body's starting to show us signs and we're like, damn. And you know, the thing that I love that she shared about, she goes, I just didn't want it to be me. And, you know, it would have been better if it was this situation or this situation, but her body was starting to talk to her and a change was needing to brew. And so she planned for that change, but then she wanted to surpass that change date, because that's what we do, because we kind of get scared of changes, right? But there's a knowingness inside. So she has this gift of tapping into people's knowingness and being able to bring that to the forefront. And that's really where success starts to happen. And so if you haven't heard her talk about her story and how you can as well use her clarifying techniques to get to the root of what it is that you want to do in terms of your next step. And isn't that the life of an entrepreneur? I mean, the life of the entrepreneur, even if you do, it's so funny. Now I talk about even if you only do one company, because there's so many entrepreneurs out there that are building brands that have multiple streams of interest that are under the umbrella. There's entrepreneurs that have multiple companies in different sectors, right? And we talk about that on Mission Accepted, about when you take on the mission. You know, maybe you're in sport and you do 3 or 4 different sports. Maybe you're a professional athlete as well as a professional musician. I mean, no longer is there any kind of like, oh, you do more than one thing. You know, when you start to do more like 4 and 5 things, people go, oh, wow, that's really interesting. You do multiple things. And then you hear, how do you have so much time, right? But it is no longer a surprise to the world, and we are infrastructured to be able to do more than one thing. But you want that one thing to serve you. You want to be clear on that one thing is that your soul's tapping into to get the juice, right? I mean, you might want to plug into 5 appliances, but you need that power bar tied in to purpose. And that's why I'm so excited that Kathleen's spending time with us today, because I'm really excited, even for someone who's done many things like I have, the reminder of what the power is in getting clear. So let's dive deep today. Kathleen, thank you so much for coming back to Mission Accepted today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be a part of something so much bigger that I'm amazed every time I think about it, that you have taken this on, and the space you've created for females in general, and the 262 that I'm tied to in this project. Oh my gosh, what an honor, what a privilege. And I want everybody out there in audience land to jump on board with us. We need you all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And so what she's talking about is this incredible book that will be launching International Women's Day next year. And if you would like to have, if you'd like to be in the book, if you are a woman of entrepreneurial minded, project minded, and you relate to the word gumption, then give us a call and let's get you in the book, as well as we have not many, but some speaking spots available as well. We'd love to interview you on the Incredible Summit. So if exposure is what you're wanting and you want to get a word out about your purpose or project, then please just, where to find us. It's not difficult. Okay, so let's dig in. So Kathleen, we were talking about, you did a great session about clarifying. So if you haven't heard it, you guys just go back into the archives, you'll see it. And on clarifying what it is that you really need to be doing. And then you talked about the power of getting clear. And honestly, it might sound really easy to just get clear on what you want, but we are in a world of silver baubles. I mean, it is difficult to get clear because our phones are ringing every day. There's opportunities every day. And also it's tough when your purpose starts to change, right? Like what your purpose was 5 years ago starts to change, and that can be a little nerve-wracking. Yeah. Can you talk to us about the power of getting clear and how you got clear?
That is so true. And I love what you said about, we're multifaceted. And part of that trap that I talked about with the success trap is you put yourself in buckets. And naturally what happens when you do that is you're denying some other parts of you, and just to talk about the intuitive piece a tiny bit. Intuitive and corporate America didn't blend very well, right? And even when I came out and was the consultant, I didn't bill myself as an intuitive guide. That took some time for me to own that. So I know that it takes time for each of us to own what it is that we are. And I love that you've opened up that space and said, yeah, let's love all that we are. And that's a lot of what your project brings to all of us too, is that automatic permission to gather us as women and all the things that we are and bring it together. So yeah, it just, the connection's just amazing. So yeah, so to talk about clear, first of all, when you clarify and you get clear about what you want, life is just so much more joyous, right? Because you get to, things either fit into what you want or they don't. And so you just make a decision without guilt. You end up with more time, more energy, because you're not spinning in all the things that you don't want to be doing. However, it is kind of, it's not a one and done, as you say. You're changing, you're finding your purpose, you're filling into who you are. And that's exactly what I experienced. So some of the things that were topical that said, okay, what do we need to clear away? And it's easy to talk about in terms of a client. I had, I'll call her Charlotte because I don't want to say her name, but so she came to a workshop that was sort of a preempt to get into a group, right? And so she came to the workshop and it was supposed to be a happy day. The room was full of women. Everybody was taking on what they wanted in life. And, it was full of imagination and, what if and possibilities. And Charlotte cried the whole day. Literally. We were there for 7 hours and Charlotte cried for 7 hours. And I said, and I knew her before this. And so I said, what is it? And shame came in and I'm familiar with that too, because when I got sick, I was ashamed, so it was kind of like, what's happening? So the short of it was, she didn't think she liked her husband much. Things were not great there. She wanted to quit her job that she'd worked so hard to get, was good at, and was in the, six figures plus. She had 4 kids that she thought was her whole life, but every day all she could think about was how she was letting them down. And she wasn't happy with her body. Now, I thought she looked amazing, but for her, if she wasn't in the gym, wasn't really moving it, she wasn't happy. And so, so I said, okay, so she became my client. And the first thing she wants to do is she said, I've got these 2 jobs. Which one do you think I should take? Because she'd already sort of started that process out of desperation. I said, I don't care, pick one. And she said, what? I expected more from you. Thank you very much, was her attitude. And I said, here's the thing, is that you're not going to stick with either one of them because, you've heard the saying, wherever you go, there you are. And that's a saying I used to hear in my early years, and I had no idea what it meant, but now it was crystal clear because she hadn't done any of the internal work, any of the what's inside of here that I need to set aside and what do I need to incorporate into me in order to make this next big move. So I said, you're just going to quit them, and you're going to be right back here. Only now you're going to have money problems on top of all the other things. So we proceeded to sort of dissect it. And the clearing, it's so insidious and it's so sneaky. You know this because you study the mind, and I've heard you talk about that. But most of the things that we believe came to us at probably before the age 7, or somewhere around there, right? So we make decisions, and or we're told things, and we believe things. And so this is where the intuition came in. We were in a session, and I was like, what happened with you and your dad when you were like 7? What was going on? And she went pale white, and she cried even harder. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, what did we do here? What she remembered was basically her dad lost everything. His finances were aflare. Now they had to move in with somebody else. And in that moment, even her dad had moved in with her as an adult, and became her responsibility. So somewhere in her mind, she tied in that work was going to cost her family, was going to cost her everything, so we worked through that. Was that true? And did the steps that we did. And that was something that was underlying with her. I mean, she was 45, 48. She wasn't a really young person, but she had no idea that belief was underneath of her. And then it took her a little while for her to believe that she could clear it. But we put some practices into place, and she did. And that was sort of a bit of a kingpin. All of us have lots of beliefs that interfere with what we're doing that we may not even know interfere. But the long and the short of it, she ended up in the program. We went through it, and she did the work. And that's why I say I guide people. I can't say I did the work. She did it. And, she ended up getting a new house, lots of date night posts all over the place. She found a second stream of income, which speaks to you saying, hey, you don't have to just do one thing. So that took the pressure off that. And she really liked the job she had. She's really good at it. She has a large team. And so there she is. And, she moved closer to her job, and had more time for her kids. And it sounds like a happily ever after story, but the truth is there are a lot of steps in there, and she really did the work to get herself there. So when you think about clearing, you get clear on what's the problem. You get clear on what the problem is, and then you think, what is it that's keeping me from it? What deep down in is it? And it's usually something that happens between the ages of 3 and 7 that we've made fact for ourselves. And and go ahead.
No. I was going to say that I think that's a really profound piece. I think that's a profound piece that's worth some dialogue, because I can hear people be like, "Oh, that's a really great thing to do." How do we do that? Obviously, there's different ways you can work with someone who has the ability, like you did, like she did with you. Obviously, that's why you're here today to share that information. For some people, that's completely new information. And it's funny because those of us that have been around for a while, we know, it comes down to, how do you cook the Christmas turkey? Well, the same way that your great grandmother did, because everybody, it just kind of goes down the pipeline, right. And we don't mind that. But when you think about what your great grandmother thought about finances or empowerment or having choices or standing up for yourself, or, why are we afraid to stand up for ourselves? Why are we afraid to go into the boss and ask for more money? Why are we afraid? Right. Is it just the realism here, or is it the fear factor from 7 generations back, and clearing those kind of things? But I think it's right. But I think it's important for people to get quiet when they ask themselves those questions. And if they don't know how to answer that for themselves, then reach out to someone, and reach out to Kathleen. I mean, you've done that, because I've seen it and you've seen it. And I know that you say it sounds like happily ever after. And I think the truth is that there can be happy ever after. It may not be by the time you read the end of the book in, an hour of one night or 2 nights. There is a process, but it is worth doing the work, right? Because what gets uncovered is at the very least solutions. Like even when you say she moved closer to her work, I mean, that may be something she never would have thought of. Just kind of like when you talked about in the last show about, do you really need to clean your house from top to bottom before you have, the people over for Christmas? And honestly, I did that for years and didn't even think about it. I'm washing the floors, and people like, you're having a dinner party of 25 people. Like, why are you washing do you know what your floors are going to look like tomorrow? What, it's going to look clean for the first 3 people that show up? Like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
But I think it is happily ever after in the sense of, and I just had this experience 2 weeks ago, Kathleen. I went into a business meeting, and this person that was having this conversation with me, it was like, I was like, 20 years ago, I would have believed everything that came out of this person's mouth. This is not true. This is not
That's
true.
right.
And they were looking to see when they were, I was like, wow, I'm really watching to see them watch me for when that hook took place. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about that person. It's just a way of them doing their sales that I would have, you know, I drank that Kool-Aid 20 years ago. And I'm like, I came home and I was texting a girlfriend. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so much better. I just observed myself and I was like, when is this going to end? I found a way to end the meeting early because I didn't want anyone to go through any more pain, myself or them. And I was like, I really saw my growth. I didn't
Yes.
bite where I normally would bite. I didn't get excited when I didn't have the backup, and I could just tell. And it was and you know what? I remember being in very painful incidences like that before, you know, in interpersonal relationships where I was like, I didn't believe myself.
Well, you know what? I call that trading your knowing for someone else's. And we do that. We do that. We do that when we're not sure of ourselves. We do that when we don't have a plan for ourselves, when you come in unprepared, unready. So you just become a part of someone else's plan. And it just
Mm,
becomes so easy. And then you don't really want to speak up because you might not have the better idea or whatever it is. But we do it in relationships. We do it at work. We do it with our kids. We do it with society. Oh my gosh, social media. I love that you said, you know, I listened and I thought, none of that's true. None of
hmm
that's true. But how gullible are most of us walking around being? And when does it click that, hey, I don't have to trade my because now I know what fits into my wheelhouse, what's right for me. And I'm non-judgmental. It's like that can be right for you all day long. It's not right for me. And so God
hmm
bless you, God bless me. And let's just go on with what it is we know. And don't give in to, you know, what everybody else
hmm
wants to tailor you
hmm
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
That's
just found it
that's really
interesting when you
key.
were saying that story about, you know, how getting clear had her do things that actually actualized in solving a problem, but she probably never thought, oh my gosh, I'm not spending as much time with my kids and da da da. I know, I'll just move closer to my work. Like those things just don't come to you. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
don't necessarily
Yeah.
just come to you. So getting
Yeah.
clear and listening and asking that question. I love that.
And it really and the
Yeah.
muscle grows, right? The more you do that, the more skilled you are at doing that. You know, if you catch yourself, what I call the monkey mind, which I love to talk about, but you know, when you hear that person, that sense of yours coming in and saying either this isn't true or that isn't true, and first of all, speak carefully with your words because they become things, right? And so when you hear it come in, being able to pause in that moment and go, really, right? Is that right? That doesn't feel right, right? Because we have those instincts, you know. Intuition isn't something that's only given to a few of us, it's given to all of us. We just, a lot of us through our life learn to dumb it down, to ignore it, to trade it out, and to trade someone who appears stronger, more positioned, you know, whatever they are. We're willing
Mhm.
to think they know more. And that's kind of a funny thing too, because before I got into the corporate office, if you will, and I was out as a worker because I worked my way through, I thought those people were brilliant, right? What made me think that? Why? Because they had a company car, because they had a suit, because they made their own, you know, because whatever.
Mhm.
And the truth is, they weren't. You know, I got in there, and not to be smart alecky, but it's kind of like, they're not any smarter than me. They're not any, you know, I don't know why I was so willing in those early years to put others above me. And the most dangerous way was putting their knowing above mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Touche. Touche, right? I think there's
yeah.
that's interesting, right? You need to, there's that whole, you need to earn your, you earn your, and you do, and we earn
Yep.
our, because we know that we get more educated and we get wiser as we go along, but
Absolutely.
also not falsely giving people more power because of things that are not actual, right? Like if I'm going to hand information over to somebody or take information from somebody, I want to know that they're wise in what they're doing and they're versed in experience and that ratio is appropriate, right?
Yeah.
But it's not because, like you said, they're wearing the suit or the car they're driving or the dots behind their name or what have you. Yeah.
All those success traps, all those things that mean success. And then you get to, I think it's, for me, it's like the key to midlife crisis, right? I really think this is what it is. You get to this point and you go, wait a minute, whose life is this? Nothing feels good about what I'm doing, or, how did I get here? And all of a sudden you realize those were not your values you were living. Those were not your beliefs, but instead you were encasing others. And so, hopefully you find a healthy way to turn that around and, don't go out and do crazy things. But I think that's kind of where midlife crisis comes from. You wake up and you go, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I am capable. I am powerful. I am strong. For me, God has put it into me. And I have not only the ability, but the responsibility to get out there and put it out in the world. And that's what I want for all the women.
Yeah.
To get to
I think it's really interesting as well when you get clear. I think, and we'll finish with this because that's why I love that you're here and that you're such a powerful resource for this. Because I think even in hearing your story, and you guys, if you haven't heard Kathleen's story, go back to the first episode where we start this demystifying of the success trap, is that sometimes we're afraid to get clear because we think it's going to show to us on paper, or I'm going to sit from you and Kathleen, you're going to say to me, your whole world needs to change. That's what I think is part of the fear about listening to the inner voice, because you are probably in some form of passion. You are in some form of purpose, yet there's either a knowingness that you need to shift. And we somehow think it's shift in every area of our life. Now, someone might be I need to shift in every area of my life because they're in a lot of pain and what they've been doing isn't working. And that you should be grateful for, because, Kathleen can help you before you have to crawl along the glass, right? We all have that dark night of the soul. But I think when you're talking about entrepreneurs or, you're working with female leaders, is that I think sometimes it's hard to admit that something's not going right because of the fear of all of the areas that you think that you're going to need to change. And sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes it's a shift instead of a dump. But I think we're afraid to I don't want to look at it. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to make a move on that because it means I'm going to have to change everything. And oh my gosh, I've built this and it's taken so long. And I think that's where the flooding in that prefrontal cortex stops us from just getting clear and allowing ourselves to know it and giving ourselves permission to, okay, I know something needs changing. Doesn't mean you have to change it tomorrow. You can work out a plan. Like you had that plan, like in a year, I'm going to, how great is that? Making a plan for the change. But I think a lot of times we think once we know it, we have to do something right away. But it doesn't mean you have to go and clean your whole house out. Maybe you just need to clean the shed.
That's right. Exactly. And that's my plea to women. Please don't quit all that you've worked so hard for. Please don't give up on yourself. Let's talk. Let's get you through. If you want to quit when you've worked all the way through it and that's the right thing for you, then I'll certainly help you do that. But, like in the client's case I talked about, she didn't quit her husband. She didn't quit her kids. And she's so much happier. She's like a whole new person. I'm shocked myself. I'm like, whoa. She just found parts of her she didn't know she had. So it was really, really good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And there's that thing that was playing in the back of my head when I was facing this, is that old thinking, that old belief, never let them see you sweat, right? Don't make these changes in front. So that's a big fear that women face. It's kind of like, everybody will see that I'm having this problem. Well, that's a big difference that I see between entrepreneurs in the corporate world, because in the corporate world, you don't let anybody see you sweat. That's sharks in the water. That's a danger place. And what I find in the groups of entrepreneur women that I work with too, is that the vulnerability is just such a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Oh, and I relate. Full transparency, right? I was raised by a single mom, and it was just make money. Like it was just go forward and make money. And I didn't see her ask for help, and I didn't see her get help. And, probably, because we all were, my aunts and all those, we were all kind of in that same level financially. So I don't think they could, but, I never saw that. I never saw that. And so, it was difficult, and it's still, I find myself difficult in asking someone to help
you,
That's right. It's just one of those things. We all have our thing, and it's just like, no, I got it. No, I got it. No, I got it. Right. And it's very interesting having to go through something and trying to figure out where it came from, and does it serve you?
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And what would it be like if that weren't true?
Yeah. That's a great question. What would it be like if that wasn't true? All right. Okay. So who wants to come over and do a little housework? No. There you go. Right. That was interesting. The first time I hired someone to do some housework, that was monumental, right? Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Okay. That's a whole different episode, people. All the things that we thought. We'll do an episode on all the things, and you guys can all chirp in. We'll do a big Zoom. We'll do a big Zoom podcast that day. Look, okay. So clarifying, getting clear, then being able to tap into where those messages are coming from. Is it true? Does it serve you? Making the changes. And then I would think the next time we're going to talk, I know, is around claiming, but at least you're claiming the right stuff. So come back, and we're going to do episode number 3 with Kathleen Carlson, who is the expert for female leaders on really not only using her intuitive ability, but their knowingness as well to have the success in whatever area of their life that they want. Super excited about that. Kathleen, you already answered the ultimate question around like your fave music person, but I got to ask you, when you're not listening to Rod Stewart, have you ever had a moment with music? Is there any other song that you've tapped into? Like, share with us.
Yeah. I mentioned in the first episode that, I went through a little not so healthy time in my life. And I was working with Christy Whitman, who was one of my first trainers that I worked with for a year. And at one of her events, Karen Drucker was there. And Karen Drucker sort of does the spiritual, and she was there for the whole weekend. And one song that I really grabbed onto was Whole, Healed, and Healthy. And so I have a lot of techniques that I use for myself and with all my clients, and ways to get in touch with yourself. Some of them tactile, some of them, whatever. But that's a song that comes in that, is really sort of personal, and a time to get quiet and to really feel that in every cell of myself, and recognize that I am whole, healed, and healthy. And so Karen Drucker, I think I'd take her on the island tour as well. If I could.
Take her on the tour. Right. We need to have her in the book. Oh my gosh, it would be amazing to have her sing that song during one of our events. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about the 262, the stand up, speak up, and show up. Yes, you. And if you went, just me, yes, you, come and speak and share. It is 22 summits of the most incredible women in all sectors, pouring into you their advice, their love, their inspiration, their motivation. Some of them are singing. We all know how much I love music. There's definitely a music theme through a lot of our celebrities and our speakers. And it's been incredible. So come and share. If you'd like to be a part of that, let me know. We do have some, not a lot, but some speaking spots left. But look, on the 8th day of every month, you guys, this, there is an event that's free globally. Right? You can go on to debdrummond.com and look at events. You can reach out at deb@debdrummond.com. You can go on to any of my social media platforms, and you will see us. And it is Eventbrites that we're sending out that is just free. Pass them on. It's a free global event. It is the largest International Women's Day event that has been focused around speakership and authorship. And if you'd like to be platformed, if you'd like to be in a book with 262 women like Kathleen, we'd love to have a conversation about you being part of this project. It is going to go all the way till Mother's Day weekend of 2024, and then a 5-year book tour. You got time? Get over here and play with us. So anyways, thank you so much. Tune in to episode number 3 of Kathleen sharing and wrapping all of this up in a beautiful bow for us so that we can change our lives. Kathleen, thank you so much for being with us. And you guys, until we meet again, be well and stay groovy. Bye for now.
Bye for now.